Welcome to Coping with COVID-19 for Parents. It's our series that we are doing to help our parents in this time where we're very confined and sort of in four walls with our kids and figuring out how to deal with a lot of the behaviors and issues that come along with being with our kids all the time, when in fact we've been used to something completely different. I am Gerry Vassar, President and CEO of Lakeside.
And I'm Diane Wagenhals. I'm the Program Director for Lakeside Global Institute.
In my experience of parenting, I had two sons. And one of the things that I would constantly experience is when I would get home at the end of the day, my dear wife, who had been managing my two sons all day long, would basically say, "Here, I am done. I'm going to go cook. I'll do anything. You now have the boys." And I think it was symbolic of the fact and representative of the fact that having two children creates all kinds of issues. And we call that sibling rivalry out in the literature. So Diane, why is it that I had all this sibling rivalry with my two kids?
You mean who started it?
Who started this?
Well, you started it.
Why?
You had two kids.
Oh, so thanks a lot. She's so helpful. Isn't it great to have an expert here to tell you it's your fault? But anyway, in the process of this, it's a real deal.
It is.
It's something that we experience when we have two brothers and sisters or brothers and sisters. You had two girls, I had two boys, so we had different aspects of handling this. So give us some ideas about really why sibling, aside from the fact that you have more than one kid, why is it that sibling rivalry is such a significant issue in parenting?
So one of the things that is behind sibling rivalry, there's a lot of things behind sibling rivalry, but one of them is that we're so protective of each of our children. If one child is attacking the other child, that protective thing comes up inside of us, like, I can't let you hurt my beloved second child or first child. Oh, wait a minute, you are one of my children, and so it can cause a lot of conflict within a parent. So that's one piece of what happens. We also have our memories of our own childhoods. If we were only children, when sibling rivalry happens, there can be almost a panic over what is this, because kids can be brutal. They can seem so vicious. And one of the things, too, is that it's not a good idea to just say, well, let them work it out, because they can actually hurt each other. But deciding when do you interfere. Mm-hmm. Another thing isn't saying, here's a great line parents use, who started this? Because that comes back to, you started it, you had two children, mm-hmm. or more. Because they're both going to have their own stories of how this all started. And it really starts from a number of things within kids. First of all, they're immature. They don't have relational skills, because that's part of their job growing up, is to learn that. Mm-hmm. They're, as we said before, they lack judgment. They're impulsive and egocentric. So they're going to do things without saying, I care about my sibling. That isn't first on their list. It's probably not even 10th on their list. Mm-hmm. And they don't have good judgment. And they're impulsive. So they will swing at a child or throw something at a child or, their sibling that could be really dangerous, because they lack judgment, they're impulsive, and they're egocentric. So we can't ask them to be other than that. It's one of those things that it's just one of the parts of parenting. If you think, I'm a bad parent because my kids are fighting with each other, you need to change that to, my kids are doing what kids do. Now, is it excessive? If it is, maybe kids are feeling really anxious. A very interesting thing that children will do, and this is really important to know in this time of all the anxiety everybody's experiencing. If they suspect or they're really clear that their parents are fighting with each other, it puts them in a place of great danger, because they are dependent on their parents for survival. One of the things children will do as a survival technique is something called drawing the fire. They will start fighting with each other to create a ruckus so that the parents will stop fighting each other, will join together in order to effectively work with these children who are doing, and children will misbehave in general to draw the fire. It's not just sibling rivalry, but sometimes that's what they do. So that's another piece of it. Birth order matters. Birth order matters because depending on your birth order, like both of us are the youngest of 3 children. And so our birth order has certain qualities and characteristics, but it can make it hard for us to identify with firstborns, and we may even be carrying some resentment about how our firstborn had extra privileges or got to do things first because they were first. We can be carrying some of that into what we're doing with our kids.
So is it about competition?
Sometimes.
And what's that competition about?
Kids, we like to think our kids have wonderful self-esteem, and most of the time they don't think they're all that. Sometimes they do, but they're often struggling with their sense of self. And so when they see what another sibling's able to do, that lack of self-esteem that's normal can rear up, and they can feel like they're inadequate or less than. And if they're the younger child, it's hard to compete with a child who's a couple years older, and they want to be able to do what that child can do. And if it's the older child, they can often resent how the younger kids get away with stuff they couldn't do at that age because their parents were just learning. You know, the first child's kind of the test child. And then once parents figure it out, they're better equipped with subsequent children.
So there's something you said that intrigues me somewhat because I think it's a frustration of parents. We gave this sense that, well, sibling rivalry just happens. It's because of all their developmental issues and how they relate to one another and how they're relating to their parents, and there's this complex of things going on. And you gave me this sense, well, this is just the way it is. There's nothing we can do about that.
No. Because,
so tell me, what is it that we can do about it? Because we don't want to just say, well, they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, no. And that's where you don't want to just walk away and let them fight it out.
Right.
I know there's some authors who talk about having a system of you don't get involved until you think there's danger, till it has escalated, because sometimes they can work it out. Also, we've talked about rules. One of the rules is you don't hit. And Barbara Coloroso says the rule is you hit, you sit. So if one
you hit, you sit, meaning that's sort of a timeout.
That's, as soon as you hit, you go sit.
Okay.
One of her approaches, I think, is really spectacular, is that when kids have had a fight, you've stopped it, and they'll get used to having to do this, and that is you have to give each other permission to get up out of a chair. So if you and I were siblings, and we were sitting in these chairs because we had just had a fight, and our parents told us, Diane, you have to give Gerry permission to get up, but he also has to give you permission to get up. And so you can sit there till you each agree to give the other person permission, which gives the kids each power, but no power, because they're dependent, and they can be angry, they can do anything else, but.
Interdependent power. Huh?
There you go. It also gives the parents a wonderful break, because they can sit there, and they have to sit in the chair till they work that out. So you can go do something else for a little while where they're, hassling it out.
I can't help it. I think my kids would have slid at each other and kind of
well,
kicked.
then as the wow, that says a lot. You would have to make sure the chairs are far enough apart.
Ah, good point.
Yeah.
There's some practical issues.
Yes, and kids will say, "I have to go to the bathroom." And it's like you have to decide. I'll walk you to the bathroom, and then you're back in the seat again. But I think having some strategies yourself, and knowing that if the kids are trying to get you to pick sides sometimes, and to really say it's about our relationships, and it's about how we care for each other, and if the rule is in our family, we love and care for each other and respect each other, and then comes back to, guess what? If you break the rules and you've hurt somebody, you need to make amends, and you can help kids learn if they've hurt another sibling. Not only do they lose their privileges, but the amends have to be something that that the offended child feels is adequate. Now, you have to kind of intercede if it's over the top, but you have to go to your brother and say, not only, and don't force them to apologize. That's an interesting thing too, because probably they're not sorry.
Right.
And if you make kids say, "I'm sorry," What you can say, you can add to that, you can say, well, and this could be not necessarily true. I wasn't trying to hurt you. It was an accident. Maybe it was or maybe it wasn't. But you don't force kids to lie about what was going on for them.
Mm-hmm.
But that I am promising I will not do that again.
Okay. Which could be a lie as well, but
well, they can hope. You can hope for it. And then the whole making amends. The whole, okay, so you hurt somebody. You can't have your privileges till you make amends to their satisfaction. If that means for the next hour, they get to boss you around, or they get to pick what we're going to have for dinner, or they get to pick some kind of TV show or something, that's your consequence. Mm-hmm. Once kids find out that parents are going to intercede with things they don't like, they can quickly work things out because they don't like that. Mm-hmm. If they can get parents all riled up, there's some power in that.
Right, right. Great points. Thank you, Diane. And I think that those of us who are dealing with more than one child can think about how we're approaching this. And my kids also were very good about remembering those moments that they had to do something that they really didn't like. And they go, do you remember the time where I did this to you? And then we had to do that. That's become part of our family discussion as a memory point, which has been kind of fun, but also meaningful that they remembered.
Yeah, it hit them.
Right.
The other thing, and I was talking to my daughter, she has 3 boys, and one of the things she's noticing, because maybe there's less stress in a way because of how they're all having schoolwork like it's a one-room schoolhouse.
Right.
That they're helping each other more, that they're being kinder to each other. She said, I don't know what this is about, but it's a whole different, instead of being so competitive, they're being compassionate.
Wow.
And fostering that, like, we're a team. And it is harder if you're the youngest. It is harder if you're the oldest. It is hard if you're the middle child, that there's things about it that you don't like. And yet, if we all work together as a team, we can support each other and care for each other. And if you can communicate those messages, not that it's going to be perfect, but she was just so surprised and pleased about maybe when there's less stress in the family, kids don't have as much rivalry.
Right. So maybe there's something positive about the family being together
It
that can happen
Wouldn't
as
that be cool?
our children kind of help each other in the process. Thank you so much, Diane, for that discussion on sibling rivalry. I hope that's been helpful to you. And thank you for joining us for our Coping with COVID-19 series for parents.